Hey guys, and welcome to a good fun scrap, which is going to encapsulate life as a DAWI player in 2021. I'm going to be playing under the guise of the Blind Bandit up against King of Atolia, also known as the Mighty Capt Tellus, in a bit of a DBD showdown. Should be a good fun game, and we're up against everything the DAWI hate to face. But first and foremost, let's go through our own build. So we do have a load of miners with blasting charges in the front line. These guys are amazing up against Tomb Kings because they kill all the chaff. Your skeleton spearmen do decent damage to Tomb Guard as well, and all round can be a big nuisance. Relatively solid armour can sometimes be hard for the Tomb Kings to pierce. In the secondary line we have a load of Dwarf Warriors, nice and shielded, alongside a couple of Longbeards as well, one of which is the Grumbling Guard, the other is a basic unit of Longbeards with great weapons, both very powerful, good sticking power, and can dish out the pain as well. Just behind them, we have even more Dwarf Warriors and Miners guarding the flanks and the rear, and a nice central pocket of Thunderers. 1, 2, 3, 4 Thunderers to bring that long-range pressure to attempt to deal with Skeleton Chariots, Archers, Ushopti, anything that comes towards you that isn't chaff, get your Thunderers shooting into them. In the backs here, we do have the Dragonback Slayers, the heroic and mighty, yet fallen and kind of dishonoured, I suppose, Slayers, trying to get back their honour where possible, and they're looking for vengeance for sure, looking particularly grumpy and dishevelled today. Leading our force, we do have a Master Engineer down here on the ground, coming in with the Fiery Ring, as well as, of course, the Mighty Flash Bomb, and Thoric Ironbrow. Now, bringing him on top of his big toilet seat here can be a bit of a gift and a curse. It makes him a bigger target for Ushopti, but I think it's probably worth it, because you are going to get quite a few better benefits coming in on top of the Mighty Seat, of course, making him a little bit more tanky, but also bringing in, the Rune of Doom, which is so good. And to try to counteract Ushopti, we have the Rune of Negation, giving ourselves that 40% damage resistance, Rune of Wrath and Rune, and the Rune of Slowness. That's going to be it for our build and for our opponent as we do stare across the desert, trying to get to grips on pin our location of our enemy build. Well, it is all over the place. We have a couple of Karen up in the sky, and then it is the dreaded quad Ushopti Great Bow, and I believe they're all the basic ones, no chosen of the gods here. A load of Skeleton Horsemen, as well as some Horse Archers. Horse Archers are an interesting pick here. They're quite good up against Slayers, but that's about it. They're still relatively mobile though, and can force their way into the back line, and then a bucket ton of Chariots, so triple Skeleton Chariots over on this left-hand side, with Archon the Black coming in with Spirit Leech spam, and he kind of stops you from bringing Great Cannons and other such stuff, because 4 units of Ushopti plus Archon will easily take down a couple of Great Cannons, or base Dwarvish Cannons I should say, but they're great regardless of the name, and that is because Spirit Leech is so good at killing artillery pieces. Apart from that, it's going to be 1 unit of Skeleton Warriors in the back. I believe that is actually what tips this build over to being tournament legal. Get the extra 120 troops there, or certainly helps out. There is a 300 limit. Without further ado, let's get this battle underway. So we're going to be rotating our force around, trying to find a home for our DAWI build. Now, we are getting whacked a little bit. Spirit Leech is cast on the Master Engineer, doing some pretty decent damage, despite the fact, of course, he does have magic resistance. And it looks like Thoric Ironbrow is going to be popping that Rune of Negation on him, realising that the Ushopti are going after him. He still takes pretty considerable damage though, and is a rather big, slow target, which is a bit of a problem for the Dwarfs. Now, if you do play Dwarfs, if you come up against Tomb Kings, if you come up against Wood Elves, you will face pretty much these builds time and time again. Particularly against Wood Elves, it's going to be no infantry, it's just going to be range and a load of horsemen, and it's something you have to try to deal with and just kind of absorb damage with your cheaper troops. Have a load of troops with shields or miners who are just a little bit expendable, and try to keep your key units active. Looks like Thoric is still juking quite a few shots there. Look at them go, waddling back and forth, trying his little heart out. Now, the Master Engineer has got his sights locked onto these Ushopti and starting to poke at them, though my opponent is going to pull back, stopping me from shooting in, and move out of position. We do some Dwarf Warriors in the back. We're going to be rotating round just so their shield wall is facing the Horsemen, absorbing some of that pressure. And if the Horsemen are going to be shooting into Dwarf Warriors, I am really happy with that situation. We don't care whatsoever. It's a fantastic trade for us. One thing we're really not happy about, though, is the amount of fire coming in at Mr. Thoric Ironbrow. We are trying to push forward a little bit and engage with the enemy. I'm not doing the best job, honestly, if I'm doing a little bit of feedback to myself with Thoric Ironbrow. He's quite stagnant and static. We're just going to get him moving back and forth a little more, though. He's doing a decent job dodging shots. Master Engineer is quite a small target, so he's got a little less to worry about, though those constant Spirit Leeches come in will also be quite a pain, and that's also a big problem for Dwarfs, is your opponent is basically guaranteed, if they so wish, and you don't have any cannons, to get max value and use up all of their Winds of Magic from their caster, because you have no way of catching them. In the back, you can see Dwarf Warriors still being used just to shield off the Horse Archers, drive them away. The one target they're trying to get onto is the Dragonback Slayers, and the reason you bring them is in case the Dwarf has gone for a mass Slayer build, because they can bomb rush the Shopty and actually catch them. Unfortunately, my build pretty much can't do that. We are pushing forward with Thunderers, trying to get on top of you Shopty where possible, and a load of ammunition has been extinguished by my opponent, and Thorok is still looking relatively healthy. I mean, he's taken a bit of a chunk in, but about half ammunition on these two units of you Shopty. The other ones are used up about a third of their ammo so far. Karen will be flying high up in the skies, trying to get over here and taunt Mr. Thorok Ironbrow, and we're just pushing forward very slowly with Thunderers, trying to get into range and shoot the Shopty. Every time we get close, however, my opponent is just going to pull back, and we unleash a few shots right now into the Shopty Great Bows, who are taking the low ground here. This is where the bow is better than the bullet, as they can shoot up and over into our troops, and that Master Engineer is starting to get a little bit low. We do shoot into the Carrion, doing some nice work to them, just trying to apply a little bit of pressure. Master Engineer is going to be chasing, and now the Dwarf Warriors will be pushing forward, along with the Miners with blasting charges, just applying pressure to my opponent, and keeping up that good work with the Thunderers. We've started to do a little bit of poke damage, but nothing too crazy so far. Again, my opponent going to play the real slow game here. Use up all your bow shots, use up all your Spirit Leeches, then you move into the glorious hand-to-hand combat. In the distance, you can see, those are, well, we're perched on the rock here, looking down on the battlefield. The Skeleton Archers are actually trying to focus down Master Engineer where possible. Thunderers will be moving back to try to counteract that, and Thorok Ironbrow is going to be advancing as well. I pop a flash bomb down on them, hoping that my Thunderers were in range, and they actually are in range. The problem is this hill is stopping them shooting for some reason, despite the fact they can actually see half the unit. So that Rune of Solace, unfortunately, is kind of wasted. But hey, it's a rune. We're going to have plenty more during the battle if Thorok does indeed survive. Slayers are starting to take quite a lot of pressure, and now the Thunderers do move back. Dwarf Warriors moving out to the flanks as well, as more Thunderers start to apply some pressure to those pesky Skeleton Chariots. I want them off the field as quickly as possible, because once the Bow Shopty have used up their ammo, they are basically useless against Dwarfs. Their 23 melee attack is garbage compared to the majority of the Dwarf melee defense. Finally, the Skeleton Chariots are going to commit to a fight. We do have the Grumbling Guard here, and I'm going to be trying the new brace mechanic. So I'm actually going to stop rather than counter-charging and try to brace, and it does okay. I mean, we stopped the Chariots going completely through us. The second ones do kind of ram them through, unfortunately, and the Grumbling Guard are now taking considerable damage there. We do have a lot of Thunderers and some overlapping fire. My opponent's trying to push through onto this first one. That's why we have the second Thunderers to start laying in some shots. And a lot of the Skeleton Chariots are taking big damage, but likewise are the Grumbling Guard and the Thunderers in the back here. Thorok is slowly being whittled down here. Looks like the Bow Shopty have finally got their eyes in gear. Carrion are being just taken to apart right now. The Dragon Princes are just cleaving them, ripping their wings off, devouring their skulls in front of their friends to send a message: we will not bow, we will not bend, and we will not break. Good pressure here, use of the Horsemen, use them to push into my back line. They're not really going to do much damage whatsoever with their arrows, so moving them into combat isn't a shabby idea. Unfortunately for my opponent, though, we have a rune of slowness down. Dwarf Warriors will be able to hack and cleave them apart. Thorok Ironbrow takes quite a lot of damage right now. I was trying to hide him behind this hill, it was not working. We've gone a little aggressive with our Miners with blasting charges. This is a big mistake from me. It is so frustrating not being able to actually push out and engage. But if you do, your opponent's simply going to pull back with their Chariots and isolate and destroy the Miners. But we were trying it regardless. Likewise, the Grumbling Guard looking to get aggressive. I'm actually trying to run them over here to see if we can save these Miners, because there's so many juicy targets here. The Grumbling Guard will quite comfortably and easily be able to dismantle. In the main fight back here, Skeleton Horse Archers are being dealt with. They're trying to escape. We're actually using Thorok to block their path and try to pin in a few of the Horsemen. Something Thorok's actually really good at. As well, the Rune of Doom shall be going down, increasing our damage output a little bit, though slightly a little bit too little too late. Thunderers have raid on the flanks, likewise have some Dwarf Warriors who can come back into the main fight. Master Engineer once again isn't caught with yet another Spirit Leech. Thunderers are unleashing hell upon the Shopty, though not really a good target anymore. They've only got 3 volleys left, and we do have some pesky summons, Spearmen, or Skeleton Warriors, not Spearmen, and I'm just going to lob blasting charges into them. There's basically no good targets for my blasting charges, unfortunately, today, so we're going to try to finish them off. Grumbling Guard got real nice and aggressive, trying to force back the enemy, and they did push back all those Chariots, but now they're rather out of position. Going to be trying to retreat back to safety. We still have 72 Longbeards here and Dragonback Slayers to protect the remaining Thunderers. I'm trying to pull back my forces in, including Thorok Ironbrow, who's getting very, very low right now. Thunderers are unleashing shots into the Skeleton Chariots, trying to drag down the contraptions of war. I've got some Miners in here, just pinning the enemy in place. Miners, just a good old, big old kind of lump in the road your opponent has to go round or go through, and they're quite tough to go through. Just as I say that, they break and run away, but you know, you get the general gist there. More blasting charges going to be used up on the chariots, won't do much damage, but hey, damage is damage at the end of the day. Grumbling Guard, isolated and alone, are still doing a pretty decent job up against these chariots. They're surrounded, they're fighting back to back. But they did manage to get 18 kills. Any decent damage value? 700, not shabby considering we kind of overextended with them quite a lot. I think if we kept them back, we'd be in a pretty solid position right now. But we lost the miners and we lost that unit for basically no gain. Although it did keep the skeleton chariots away from our main formation, buying time for our thunderers to really just bring the pain to the enemy. Somehow, Thoric Ironbrow is still alive, likewise is the Master Engineer, despite a lot of assassination attempts coming in from the forces of the Tin Kings. Ushopti just going to be taking a load of Thunderous shots. I'm not bothered about trying to save ammo. I'm going to shoot whatever I can, because there's no way we're going to use up all our ammunition in this battle. Ark on the Black is running away. Master Engineer starts to focus him down. Unfortunately, he is being obstructed right now, either by the hill or this unit of Thunderers who's decided to come have a chat with him mid-battle. Once again, we try getting Thoric Ironbrow behind the hill, and instead we perched him on top of it, though it seems to have worked rather well, as a load of arrows do sail over his head. Unfortunately, he is down to just below 800 HP right now, and he's kind of just swinging around, doing his thing, vibing, chilling, trying to bolster the morale of the lads. And now we can see the Dragonback Slayers are being focused down as well. Oh no, so it looks like they're actually all going for Thoric. So good use by my opponent here. Whip around the flank so I have nowhere to hide. And it looks like Thoric Ironbrow may have drunk his last Bugmans. He is down once again to just under 200 health, down to 83 now after that volley. He does manage to get off a Rune of Doom, just because I can, kind of a big metaphorical middle finger there to the Ushopti, but we have lost our Lord, and that's going to push the balance of power actually relatively to the middle. My opponent's run out of all of his ammunition on his Ushopti, and he only has some beat up chariots left and some skeleton warriors. We still have a mighty DAWI force, though it is beaten, it is wounded, and the morale is wavering. We've lost our Lord, which is really bad news. For some reason, I decided to get real aggressive and a little bit bold with my Dragonback Slayers. I'm not 100% sure why I did this looking back on it, but they're charging down the Ushopti like get back, and I'm like, oh, that was a big mistake, and we tried to run away as quickly as possible. Well, we're trying to use blasting chariots on the skeleton warriors, and the Dragonback Slayers are legging it. Run, lads, run! I do manage to get a few good licks on Ark on the Black, though. He's not the type of guy to want to fight Dragonback Slayers, and my Slayers get pinned in by the skeleton warriors, which is a disaster, so we have to kind of chuck everything in. Thunderers can't see once more. Stay pushed a little too close to the combat, but hey, we still have our Longbeards with great weapons. Unfortunately, Mass Spirit Leech kind of spamming and the Ushopti Bows have done a number on the Master Engineer, who's getting rather low right now, and in come the Longbeards. They're doing decent damage up against all the Skeleton Warriors and will easily butcher Skeleton Chariots as well, if they can keep them in combat. Skeleton Chariots here getting pinned in, load of Dwarf Warriors army moving in to try to drive them back. You can see they're struggling a little bit. They are getting a bit of regen right now, and more skeleton chariots are starting to disintegrate in the distance. We are going to see that summon as well of the Ushopti as more Ushopti decide to move in. I'm trying to save my Thunderers where possible, but it's so hard with all these summons coming down. We have Carrion, we have Chariots. Tin Kings really have a bucket ton of backline harass if they really want it. Longbeards are trying to pull back to save some of these Thunderers and engage with the Skeleton Horsemen. Unfortunately, that is going to leave the Dragonback Slayers isolated and alone against targets they do not want to face. That is the biggest misplay we've done so far, and we've done a couple, unfortunately, but we've still managed to do some good plays, grind out the enemy, and buy some time. Very close game, though the balance power does start to move slightly against us. Once again, Thunderers are obstructed by a tiny hill, despite the fact they can see absolutely everything pretty much on the battlefield, and now they're going to get jumped by some Carrion. I really hate the Arc of Fire sometime for the handguns there. They just don't want to shoot like people's heads. Like, no, we must go for body shots. A lot of Thunderers do start to run to try to save their lives. Likewise do these miners. If they do escape, I'm sure if they do get welcomed back to a hold, they'll be having their heads either shaven and their beards shaven, or they'll be forced to dye them orange and take the Slayer Oath. We do manage to get some Dwarf Warriors onto the Ushopti in the back. Once again, Ushopti are absolutely garbage in combat, so the Dwarf Warriors are doing a fantastic job up against them. Likewise, the Dragonback Slayers actually fended off a lot of the chaff, and are now cleaving into these Skeleton Chariots as well, starting to drag them down and crumble. But, of course, they will crumble and go down slowly, so they still have all their damage output while they do that, and they do manage to lance into the Longbeards. We have managed to trap and ensnare Ark on the Black here. He's a decent melee combatant, but at the end of the day, he's just a wizard. And what is a wizard to a dwarf? Nothing but a wazzock. So the Longbeards are starting to try to rally the lads around them. These are great weapons. They can certainly do a great job up against Ark on the Black. And he's starting to get a little bit danger low here. Imagine to try to pull our forces back together once again. Unfortunately, the Thunderers were all forced off, and they're just desperately trying to rally again where possible. We do have the Liber Mortis go down. I had a real good time playing Cap Tellus. We had quite a few games. We'll probably have some more up on the channel. We were discussing Liber Mortis. What do you guys think of it? It's 40% physical resistance and bonus leadership, which is super powerful, but it only lasts such a short time. I was wondering if people thought it was worth it or not. I think in matchups where you're worried about getting assassinated, it probably is, but apart from that, I don't know if it's worth the cost. The Dwarf Warriors and Longbeards with great weapons are doing a fine job against Arkan, who has summoned some Skeleton Warriors, desperately trying to escape the combat, but luckily Dwarfs have pretty good mass, and we're able to pin him in right here. We do have some Thunderers rallying. We have more Thunderers rallying. We managed to break the Skeleton Horse Archers, but because they're just simply going to be floating in and crumbling, it looks like they may actually be able to break and shatter our Thunderers, despite themselves being a negative 17 leadership. Doing a pretty good job. Those horses are rearing up. We have the Carrion swooping in from the back, and it looks like the Thunderers will indeed get broken from two sides. Now, we have some Dwarf Warriors who need to return back to the battlefield. Busy off, I think, from fleeing, actually. And some Thunderers have returned, looking to shoot into the enemy once more, into these rather beat-up Ushopti. Balance power is still slightly against us, but that is the Dwarf comfort zone. If you're ever in favour as Dwarfs, you know something's gone terribly wrong. Longbeards with weapons, Dragonback Slayers are here as well, 10 of them, slowing down Arkan, pinning him in place, allowing these Longbeards to really take his head from his shoulders. And he's suffering quite badly right now. He keeps popping to negative leadership and starting to crumble, but he will hold the line regardless. Ushopti are now fighting Miners, a fight they should win because Miners, much like the Ushopti, don't have great melee stats. Unfortunately, the Thunderers do start to break. We, again, do a load of damage to the Ushopti, who will be crumbling into dust. So if these Thunderers can rally and pop 1 or 2 shots into Arkan the Black, this game could be ours because there's no more summons on the field, and Ushopti, as I said before, just can't kill Longbeards. It's just never going to happen with the pretty solid 38 melee defense up against a pitiful 23 melee attack. We are trying to shoot now with the Thunderers into Arkan the Black. Unfortunately, once again, there's this big hill involved, and we're not able to unleash shots into him. Dwarf Warriors have rallied them, trying to pull Arkan over him, like, hello, I've got troops over here, come kill us. And that way we can use the Glorious Thunderers to pit him in a not-so-early grave, a kind of a late grave there. He's on 700 HP, Dwarf Warriors do push in and break, but the Thunderers shatter, abandoning all that is good in the world and the Dwarvish kind of fight here, and they flee, which is a disaster. One volley into Arkan probably kills them, because they start crumbling. Only 600 HP, we had 19 guns trained on him, and they fled. I was like, oh no, it's over, what do I do? But if you look across the battlefield, we actually indeed have the numbers. We still have our Dwarf Warriors holding firm, our mighty DAWI Longbeards, and even a couple of Dragonbacks in the mist, which is more important than you would expect. Up to 191 kills is pretty cool stuff. But able to slow down units like R can be really good. Now, my opponents are simply going to chase off troops, which is a really fantastic top-tier play. Going to finish these guys off, chase them down, and all the while, Arkan the Black is simply going to get more and more magic, either for one last Spirit Lich, or more probably, I would say, a Skeleton summon here. We'll have to wait and see that if he does indeed have that Winds of Magic. And we're simply going to bunch up. We can't actually catch any of my opponent's builds, so we're simply going to sit on a hill here and form nice, tight formations to try to absorb the charge of the enemy. My opponent's simply going to completely surround us, which is 100% the thing to do. One, it slow balls the game again, so he can get more summons and so forth. And then he can come in and start to advance. So he does indeed wait for that Skeleton Warrior summon to come down in our mist, which is a big problem for us because now we're going to be fighting surrounded with all these fear-causing units, and we're desperately trying to hold the line. Dwarf Warriors instantly starting to waver. Balance power is not over yet, though, as the Longbeards rally a battle cry of the Dwarfs, trying to keep the lads fighting. Skeleton Warriors have taken an absolute pounding, but of course they are but a summon, and from all the surrounding, the Dwarf Warriors do, alas, break. We have 5 Dragonback Slayers, though, and 49 Longbeards. Get back here, they scream as they slaughter the enemies around them. Staff and the Gash goes down on Arkan the Black, who's holding on just about 330 HP, but he's not but a scratch to the mighty Arkan the Black here. And the Ushopti doing some pretty decent damage now with the Carrion, as the Dragonback Slayers do start to go down. Unfortunately, the Longbeards do break, and that is going to be GG's to my opponent. A very close game. If that unit of Thunderers had rallied, Arkan's dead. There's no Skeleton Warrior summon, and we probably win. So it really came down to a little bit of mound of sand in the middle of the battle. Well, also due to ridiculously good play by Captellus, as you would expect from such a fantastic player. I love playing Captellus. Our styles of play seem to match up really nicely against each other. We always have really fun, close games, and I'm going to be having more games as well up against Captellus in the future on the channel, because as I said, we played like, I don't know, 6 games or something, and the majority of them were really good fun. You can tell I'm pretty out. I haven't really Don't really play in tournaments at the moment. Not a big fan of, you know, the Cav beta kind of splitting and so forth. So not really playing much tournaments. A little bit rusty. Some big mistakes. But Capitellus capitalised on them. And that's what good players do. Pulling apart my build where possible. We lost a unit of Longbeards and miners, kind of thrown them away a little bit, and instantly, bam, proud on them. But if you are a dwarf player, you will know this type of game inside out. It happens, you know, every other game for dwarfs on kind of quick battles and stuff. You're gonna get kited, you're gonna get cycle charged by chariots, and you have to learn to deal with it. And we nearly did, but we'll be back, Capitellus. We'll be back with our DAWI to try to get some revenge. Really fun game all round. It came right down to the wire, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed casting and enjoyed playing it. Really good fun one. We'll get into the damage dealt and damage value of all of these units in just a second. You can see Fork there really starting to struggle, but if you guys did enjoy this, make sure to leave a big fat juicy thumbs up down below. It feeds my duck soul. Also subscribe and comment what you thought of the battle, what you would like to see in the future. Just yell quack at me. I really do read through all the comments, not only to delete the bots who appear in my comments as well, which is really frustrating, but I just enjoy it. It's really what keeps me going, inspires me to make more content for you guys. There's links down below in the description to my Patreon if you'd like to support the channel, a merch shop I believe, hopefully my Twitch in there I'll be putting down, and to my Discord. Discord's the most important out of all of those, because on my Discord you can submit replays to me, get involved with tournaments, events, keep up to date with live streams and all that cool stuff, and chill out with over 700 people who play this beautiful game. Anyway, back to the battle, the real reason we're here. Yeah, Fork Ironbrow, 172 damage value. He was just a pincushion, but he was a pretty good pincushion. Using that Rune of Negation, absorbing all of the bowfire, nearly was enough at the end. The poor Master Engineer, unfortunately, only 262 damage value. Rune of Slowness and Flash Bombs were useful to kill some of those chariots and help pin in and break down the enemy. But alas, yeah, if your opponent wants to kill your characters as Tomb Kings, they're going to kill your characters. The miners did not much, to be honest. There was no kind of cheap and shiffle chaff to kill. They killed that unit of skeleton warriors, but apart from that, they just absorbed damage. Likewise, the dwarf warriors got actually okay damage value. 524 damage value, 635, 800, 892. Really solid work there from the basic dwarf warriors. Probably most of that coming from the late game, engaging those Ushopti in hand-to-hand combat. Longbeards were fantastic, an absolute staple in my opinion. 1,057 damage value. Really were the only unit that I could use to kill those chariots effectively, apart from the Thunderers. Grumbling Guard, we overplayed them definitely. I overplayed the miners and then tried to correct the mistake by pushing in the Grumbling Guard. We should have abandoned the miners, which I know is not the Dwarvish thing to do, but we should have been like, sorry lads, you foolish youngins, you went off. We should have pulled back the Grumbling Guard and we'd been in a much better state. But still, 700 damage value, not bad whatsoever. 1.3 on the Dragonback Slayers, unfortunately getting caught out by that summon. And the Thunderers. 146 damage value is not great, but the other unit, 900 damage value, 1000 damage value, and 397, so it's certainly a mixed bag for them. For the Mighty Tellus, or King of Atolia as he is now known, Ark in the Black did a decent job. 944 damage value doesn't seem like much, but it takes away my Flash Bomb, took away the Master Engineer, and those Skeleton Summons were absolutely clutch. No damage value pretty much on these Skeleton Warriors, 363, but that is their job. And here comes the pain. The Chariots, 81, 39, 41 kills, 889 damage value, 558 and 545. We actually managed to manage them relatively effectively in the later stages of the game, but they broke off a lot of our troops, and that's also where their power lies. And then good play by my opponent with his Carrion and Horseman chasing off our troops there. Only 355 damage value on the Skeleton Horseman, and the Horse Archers performed pretty abysmal, but they're more of a safety hit. Hey, the only thing that can really counter this build super effectively is Mass Slayers, and they counter Slayers, so I like this as a bit of insurance, but yeah, all of them getting just around kind of 200 damage value, the best one 460, must have ripped some shots into those Slayers. As for the Carrion, 400 damage value and 39, still good usage to chase off troops. And the Bow Shopti, this is where the Dwarf hearts sink, and we all start to cry and weep on the ground. 1,880 damage value, 1,000, 1,200, and 1,400. As it's been said many a times by myself, Bow Shopti are the bane of my Total War Warhammer existence. As a Lizardman player, I hate them, and one day, I will seek revenge upon them and sacrifice them on the altars of Sotek. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. It was a good fun cast. Until next time, peace. And as always, stay